Okay, just click, yeah, recording. Yeah, this is it. That's everything inside. So to clone this stuff now on any system, what you need to do is just to click on this code. The simplest one is this HTTP method. So just copy the URL, go back to the folder where you want to clone the stuff. So I already created your folder here too, like that. And I want to put everything inside this folder. So what I just need to use is this git. So you type git clone, then followed by the URL you want to clone. If you want this thing to create its own separate folder, because what it's going to do is that whatever the name of this your repo, it's going to create a folder inside this current one. But I don't want it to do like that. I want it to put everything inside the current folder that I have already. So after this stuff, you can use dots, and you know what dots mean? That's current folder. So if you want to rename, if you don't put this stuff here, or if you don't put any name after the URL, it will use the name of the repo, so as a folder that is going to create there, and it will not put everything inside it. But it will put it inside the current folder you are working on. Like that folder will be created inside the current folder. But I don't want it to create another separate folder. That's why I'm using dot here, just to represent current folder. Or if you want to name it another thing, you can just call it another. So here now, another folder like this. So it's going to create this folder, and once you created the folder, it will put everything that is inside this training web like that. But I don't want to create a nested folder, so I will just use dot, and what it's going to do is that it clone everything you have there inside this my stuff. So it's loading everything, and once it's done picking them, it will just put it will show all the folders. And so 10%, 12%, and let me just pause, and once it's done, yeah, so once it's done, as you can see, I will have access to everything there. And this is the advantage of using the version control system there, which what we are using the git. I don't need to, in case the stuff is so like, since it's somewhere else on another computer, but now I'm working with a different computer. So what I can just do, go to the URL, then clone everything. As long as the details you have there are up to date, then you always have the same copy on the new system that you want to work on there. So now I have everything again. And yeah, so under this learning, what do we did here? So I think we go over everything again at that time, where we talked about what is a component and how to create it, the props, how to style in React, handling the events, what are states, conditional rendering, we've done them, rendering, so rendering in the React. So, and again, I think the other thing left, we done the mini project too, because I can see under this project here, we have this P1 where we did with this rating. And I think this second one, what do we have there inside the second one? So let me check what we have under the second. So we have these pages. So we have the OK. So this one is dealing with a post, and we use this one to connect to the API, but I don't think we actually complete the project. So today let me see what we can do, because I want us to work on a simple project, just not a big one. It have to be a simple one, because I don't just want to jump into a big project. Intermediate, this should be intermediate like this. Then we have this under the intermediate, we have the API. We've talked about this. We've talked about the hooks too, and we've talked about some of these hooks like the use state, use effect. I've talked about this use ref, but not all of them. And we've talked about how we can create our own custom hooks there. So, and yeah, so let's set up a project. Let's set up another project. So how do we set up a project? But I don't want to be calling them all these random name. I want to use a name that is describing them. So this stuff is going to be, the name of the project is going to be foodie. So I'm going to be calling the project foodie. And why am I calling it foodie is because that project is all about an application for restaurants, just like all these item 7 chicken reps and so forth like that. Most of them, you see that they punch on this their device, so input whatever you are buying, and once you are done, they will print out the receipt for you. So we should be able to have be an application like that, where we have the list of all the menu, and the user can tell us what they want to buy and the quantity of what they want there, like that. So, and where is the application that we want to work on? So I have this design, so let me go there, which should be this interactive. Let me see, interactive. It should be products. Yeah, products. Come, yeah. Let me see. It should be this. So no, it's not. So where's the design? Let me look for it. Interactive, not pricing. Card details form. Not. No, that this thing is. It should be on the. So we have this tip, testimony stats, social, single price, room, QR, profile, products, preview card. It's not this. Yeah, I know. It's okay. Sign up form, no. Intro section with drop down navigation, no. Pricing, let me check. Interactive comments, no. I'm trying to look for the file. No, it is not this. Interactive card coming. Yeah, so this is the design that we want to work on, and as you can see, it's simple, but it still have some goodies that we can use there based on the experience that we have. So we have this design, so it's just like all these restaurant application, where you have a list of all the products or all the foods that you are offering there, and it's not left for you or the user, in case if it's just a site, that they can go there and they will pick what they want to buy from your site. So, and this is how the application is going to look like on desktop when the user has not selected anything. So when the user has not take anything, this is what you are going to have under the cart. As you can see, the cart is currently empty, and again too, you see all these add to cart. But once you click on any one of them later on, this is how it's going to look like. So any one of them you click on, as you can see, the design is not different. So it's going to pop out this stuff, and once this thing is out, then the user can select the quantity there that you want. So when it is selected, when any one of them is selected, this is how it's going to be. And as you can see, there is a button to either decrease or increase the quantity there, like that. And as you can see, the details are showing by this side. So aggregate of everything is showing by this side. So the user is selecting this classic tiramisu here, the vanilla bean, and this vanilla panna here. So, and as you can see, each one of them. So for this first one, the user only pick one. For this second one, they have the 4. As you can see, that's the reason it's showing the 4 here. So, and again, this 4 times whatever the price is what is going to be here. And all this thing will be calculated dynamically based on whatever is going on this side. Whatever is going on this side, it will be happening here, and the calculation is going to be there, and you see the final calculation, and from there the user can place order. And once they place order, that's what is showing here, where they can confirm. So once you click on confirm order, then it will bring out this model that their order has been confirmed, and they can continue with the other stuff they want to do, or they will go to their dashboard to see the progress, or the progress of getting their food there, whether you are buying it there or it's something that you are ordering from home. But our own job now is to build the application for the business, and it should be able to work according to what the business is expecting for us. And what the business is expecting from us, we should be able to build a page, or we should be able to build a site that have the list of all the foods or whatever the restaurant is selling there. And this is the design that is going to be there. So once they click on add to cart will change to this box, and this box will allow the user to be able to pick how many do you want. Do you want 2, or do you want 3, and so forth like that. And currently now this application here, we don't even need to connect to the API, because the details we need has already been given to us, because inside this design that we have, the file we need is actually here. So this is the data here. So this data now is the one that contains all the products that we want to display. But if you want this thing to be more robust, or you are working on a real stuff, this thing is something that is going to have like a backend where the data are being imputed, and whatever the data that is being imputed there, that's what you load on the screen to the user. Because you don't want to load something that is always be static, or if you are dealing with something that it can be out of stock, or if it's something that is not available at a particular time, you should be able to display it to the user. But for now, we're not going to go deeper into that. We really want to be able to display the product. What are the products? As you can see here, these are the data where we have all the images. So these are different images that we can use. So the thumbnail, the mobile, the tablet, and the desktop. So these are different images that we need to show, which we are going to make changes to. Some of them are like that, because where we're going to be putting the image, we need to correct the URL here. But this is just the structure. And as you can see, each one of them have the name. So we should be able to read this data. And once we read the data, we should be able to use it on our page and display correct stuff, because this is the data. Nothing concern the user in this, nothing concern the user about this flow or the data we have here. The only thing the user wants to see is this design. But this design is coming from that data. So as a developer, you should be able to transform that data, the raw data, into this information that we are seeing on the screen. And again, too, it should be interactive, because whatever you want to do, the user should be able to interact with any one of them. And once they click, what are the interaction here? The interaction is that we have this add to cart. Once it's clicked, it will change to this design. And once change to this design, they are left with these 2 options here. So either decrease or increase, in case you want to order more than one for this particular food or whatever store there. And it's not just one item you can order. Just imagine item 7. You can order your rice. Again, you can order extra rice. You can order extra chicken. You can buy Fanta. And so all those things now is what is going to be on the list. It's then left for the user to click on whatever, or to add to the cart whatever they want to buy. And the same experience you are going to have here is what you can use to build the restaurant application later on there, like that. Even though this one will not be connected to the API, but it's still going to be the same experience there. It's just that you add more stuff on top of it there. And this is how it's going to look like on mobile, because you always want your site to be mobile responsive. Majorly these days, everybody use their phone to go to site to browse. So you make sure that the site is mobile responsive, not that they will visit the site on mobile and they will now be seeing everything jam packed together, because there's no way this thing can appear like this on this mobile screen. So we need to arrange this thing like that. And this is how the model will come out on the mobile. If you look at it on the desktop, this is how the model is. But once we move to the mobile, then this is how the model is going to come outside. So these are the stuff we need to do there like that. And this is how it's going to look like too on the mobile, which is the same thing to me. The desktop and mobile are the same. The difference is just the weight of the box are there like that. And down here too is still the same. There is not much difference from this side, whether you're on desktop or you are on the mobile there. But the layout actually change for the display of the content are there. And we should be able to design this application. And if you look at this application now, this is a type of a single page application here, because we don't need multiple pages. It's just a single page that we have here. There is nothing like about us, or there is nothing like login, or there is nothing like sign up. Assuming that we are dealing this thing with API now, we are using API where we need to know the user that actually ordered this stuff. They need to register, where they can log in with their email and password, or they can log in with their Google account. All those ones, we can incorporate it into this system later on. But for now, let's start from the basic. which is the same thing that we have on this screen. There is no other pages, it's just a single page. But this single page now is having a lot of components coming together to achieve all the aims of this application. So this application here, we are going to break them down into components, and those components are going to handle the necessary stuff that they need to be done here. So today, what we are going to do is the setup of our application. So what we need to do today is going to be the setup, and from this class here, we are going to start building the component. But for today, it's just to set up our project. And as you can see here, currently I have this folder for foodie. So inside this folder, that's where I want to have the project. And I always love to focus on the folder of the project that I'm working on. So instead of us just opening everything directly like this, I can just open this foodie alone in VS Code, so that whatever we'll be doing, because we are going to have a lot of folder under it, and since we are going to have a lot of folder and file, we don't want to be bothered by this other content that is here. So what do we need to do? We need to open only this folder in VS Code without being bothering with all these other details there. And in order for us to do that, we just need to open folder, and once you go to the open folder, you select the one that you want to open, which is going to be this Bounty. Under Bounty there, I have this React, or I have a project. Under the project, we have this foodie. And once this thing is selected now, you see that VS Code is going to reload, and it's only going to show the folder that we want to work with there, like that. Yeah, so we are only focusing on this foodie. It's still part of that other content, but we are only focusing on this particular one right now, so that anytime we're working with our terminal, it's always going to be under this foodie directly. But if I want to go back to the other ones, you can see right now it's under that folder. But if I want, I can move back to the other folder and add the necessary stuff that I want. So what do we need to do now? We need to set up our project. And the project that we want to use, that we want to deal with React here. So what do we use to set up our project? We're going to be using the vits. And you can go to vits.dev to know what you need to type. But normally, when you want to set up the vits, or when you want to set up the React using vit there, what you just need to use is this npm, then create vits like this, and then we want it to always use the latest one, so we use the @latest, so that it will always download the latest one for us there. So to create a project using vits, you are going to run this command, which is coming from their site there, which we can go to get started on the site. And once you get there and scroll down to the section where you can have all this information, then as you can see, this is what I'm running right now. So this command is what you run to bootstrap a project using vit there. And once you press enter, it's going to install the vit first, because that's the tooling that we need to set up our project. And once, as you can see right now, it's asking us for our project. So if I press enter, it's going to use this vit project, which is not something that I want, because I want to use the current folder. I already have the folder that I want to put the project, so I don't need to start creating a nested one. So I'm going to use the same dot here too, just like the way I did it for that git cloning there, because I want to put it in my current folder. So press enter. Now, which framework or which library do you want to use there? So we want this thing to help us to set up our React project. Just use arrow up or down to move to the one you want, and once you get there, press enter. So the other thing we want here too, we are using JavaScript, simple JavaScript. So there, like that. So you will go to under this third one, not this the JavaScript plus LWC. We don't want that one. So what we need is this normal JavaScript. Later on, when we are dealing with the advanced stuff, we are going to be using TypeScript, which is something we need to talk about too before we start using it there, because it's very important when you are working on a bigger project to use TypeScript, because it's going to help you out a lot with the typing. Even though you are going to do extra work compared to JavaScript, but it will really save you a lot of headache later on there like that. But it's kind of useful when you are dealing with a big project there. You can still use your normal JavaScript, but when you are collaborating with other people and the project is really large, TypeScript will really help you a lot, because it will tell you what you need to pass, because you are not the one that will be creating a lot of things. So whatever that stuff, whatever that person is creating there, if you are calling them, you always get the suggestion from VS Code there, because the type has been added. And what are the type there? The user or the person that created the stuff
already put that, okay, anytime you want to use this thing, this is how the data you need to pass is going to be. It must be number or it's going to be string and so forth like that. But JavaScript doesn't care about all these things. So, because we don't want to focus on that part, we want to focus on the application added. And once this thing is checked, as you can see, it's going to set up our project like this. And once the project is set up, the next thing we need to do, as you can see from this line, we need to install everything that we have under the package dependency here. So this package.json, we need to install all our dependency here and along with this dev, because this is what we need when we are developing our application. So everything under the dev dependency are needed when you are developing your application, but the only thing that you need to run your application in prod are just everything that you have under this dependency. But you can actually install all of them too in prod, you don't care. But later on, when we started deal with this build here, you see that Vite is going to undo everything for us, which is going to generate the distribution files that we need to deploy later on there. But for now, we don't need that. So what we need to do is you run this npmi or npm install so that you can install the lib that we need there like that. And once the lib is done installing, so what do we need again? We need to set up our CSS, because here now we'll not be using normal CSS directly. I want us to use Tailwind, because Tailwind is going to help us a lot to do some CSS there out of the box. So Tailwind is a utilities CSS framework that you can use to build a site faster, because with Tailwind, a lot of things you want to do already there. You just need to start calling them without you doing too much of work of CSS. For example, here now, if you want to make your element to display as flex, what you just use is just a class. And once you mention that class, you see that it's going to create the CSS for you behind the scene there. So if you want to give your box a particular width, or you want to give it a padding top and bottom and so forth like that, Tailwind come with some of these predefined CSS classes here, which we call the utilities, that you can use to just style your element. As you can see, as all this thing is changing, can you see that the design too is changing? And again too, it's kind of easier to work with when you are dealing with this responsiveness. As you can see, this MD now, what this thing is telling is that or what this thing is going to generate behind the scene is that whenever you're on the media screen and above, the display is going to be flex. That's what this thing is doing. But if you want to do this thing yourself using normal CSS, there's a lot of things you have to type to achieve this same simple stuff that we are typing on this line. So MD here, column, means on this screen and above. The medium or MD is just 768 and above. So when you're on a screen above or equals to 768, then this property is going to be applied. The same thing here too. As you can see, it's only the same thing. So anytime you use MD column, it means this setting, it will happen to a screen from tablet and above. So when you are on the tablet and above, the padding is going to be 0. So P here is padding. I'm going to explain a lot of them to you later on there as we'll be using them. So then we really make it faster to build sites without you doing too much of a CSS stuff. You still need to have experience of CSS, because whatever is going to be generating for you is still CSS. Just that you are not the one that is typing all this thing yourself. And again too, as you can see here, it supports the dark, which make it easier to create a dark version of a site. Currently now, if you look at this site, it's showing me the dark version of this site. If I change this my system mode from dark mode now to light, you see that the design is going to change. For example, here now, if I go to my system, because my system right now is using the dark theme, and that's the reason why the site too is showing the dark design for the site, which is something you always see on every site. So with Tailwind, it makes it easier for us to design the dark and the light mode. Like switching from light and dark mode, it's always easier with Tailwind there compared to you doing it yourself. So if I change this thing now from the dark theme to the light theme, and by the time we go back to the place now, you see that the site too will switch, because it will detect that we are now using the light theme. And once you see now, so the theme has changed based on whether your system is in light mode or is in dark mode. And it's something you can change yourself too. Yeah, as you can see, it's using the system. So whatever my system is using, that's what is going to follow. But if I want, I can just mention it that I actually want the dark or I want the light without following whatever the system is using. And with Tailwind, it's quite easy to do this changing of theming like that. But the design we actually want to work on is only having a light theme, so it doesn't have the dark. So we're not going to focus on that. But once we get to a design that requires this, so you'll see that to be easier to work with when you're using Tailwind there. But how do we set up the Tailwind for our project? So in order for us to set up the Tailwind for our project, we just need to come to this same get. Every tool that you want to use in React, there is always a documentation page for them. And the doc is your friend. When you are learning something, you always go to the documentation page to see how you can do things. So in order for us to set up the project, we need to get to this get started. And as you can see, the first thing you always see on almost all of them is how to install the stuff, just like the way we have it for the Vite. So in order for you to install, or in order for you to set up your project, as you can see, what you need to do is what they are going to show you first. The same thing too for Tailwind. When you click on get started, what you are going to do first is to set up your project or install. And as you can see here, you can install this thing using their CLI, which is not what we want, or you can just go to this framework guide, because the Tailwind is used by a lot of people, and you can use with all these popular framework that you are using to set up your project. And as you can see, these are different frameworks or library that we have there. But the one we are using, as you can see, this is our own. So we set up our project using Vite. But if you use any other method to set up your project, because this one too is for React, as you can see, is based on React. This is another React framework like that. Another one here is this Remix. So all of them, they are based on React. So this is another React. This is another tooling that you can use to set up React. But the one we are using is the Vite, because it's really faster and it comes with minimal stuff there like that. So we need to click on the Vite, and once you click on it, it's going to show you the steps that you need to follow to set up Tailwind in a Vite application. And as you can see, the first thing we need to do is to create our project, which is something that we've done already. So this first step, we've done it. As you can see here, is running this create Vite like that. But we've done this particular step. So the step that we need to move into now is to install TailwindCSS. And in order for us to install TailwindCSS, we need to run these two commands. So the first command is to install Tailwind, and after that, we now need to initialize the Tailwind in our project. So first, let's install Tailwind. So let me move this thing up a little bit. So paste the command, but now it did not paste correctly. So let me clean everything, paste it again. Yeah, so this is the correct command. And once this thing is done running, so we need to copy the second command. And this is one that is going to initialize Tailwind. And it's going to generate, what that one will do is that it's going to generate some configuration. And that configuration is where you can change some setting about Tailwind based on your project. Because you can change the color that the Tailwind is generating by default for you, or you can add some other functionality into it like that. So let me wait for it. And once it's done, then we run the second command there. And after the second command, the next thing we need to do, the file that will be generated by this second command, we need to update that file. So this file is the Tailwind config file, where you can configure where are you using Tailwind in your project. So that's what the content is all about. So whatever you put there, that's where Tailwind is going to look for all the Tailwind classes, and it will generate the necessary necessary CSS for it there. So and what is it doing here? So this thing is telling us that anytime we're using Tailwind inside this index.html, or anytime we're using anything that is coming from this source, because the arrangement of this our Vite application, look at it here. We have this index.html. So that configuration now will allow us to use Tailwind inside this file, and at the same time, it will allow us to use the Tailwind inside any JSX file or any JS file or the other type that is shown here. So any JS file, any TS file, any JSS file, or any TX file that is coming from this source, it will allow us to use Tailwind CSS inside it. Because if you don't do that line, say Tailwind will not know where to check for the classes that you're using. And if it doesn't find the classes, then it will not generate the code for you. Because what Tailwind will do is that whatever classes you are using, it's going to generate the corresponding CSS for it. Even though what you'll be typing is flex, but behind the scene is going to generate the corresponding CSS code for you. And that's the reason why that you still need to know CSS. before you start using any framework developed on all this language, because this thing will still be doing all those things, but just that it's doing it for you instead of you doing the stuff there. So now that this command is done by the installation is done, so the next thing we need to do is to initialize that file that we need to update. As you can see that the v2 have its own config, so we need to initialize the config for Tailwind. And once this command is done running, it's going to generate two files here. The major one that we need is the Tailwind config file, and that inside that config, that's where we tell it where we are going to be typing our CSS file. As you can see now, the Tailwind config file has been generated. But if you look at it now, the content is empty. So we need to tell it where we are going to be using Tailwind. And as you can see here, we need to update the content. So I will just copy everything, go back to our code, and replace this content with what I just copied from there. So now, anytime we use Tailwind inside this index.html or inside the source, anything with this extension, then it's going to see them and it will generate the corresponding CSS file there that the page can use. So what else do we need to do? So all the CSS is going to be generated there. There's some stuff we need to add into our index. So this line now, we need to copy everything here and go to inside our index. So this is the file where you're going to, anything you are doing, it will tell you the file where this thing is coming from. So for the Tailwind config.css, .js there, this is where we do the stuff. Then inside our index.css, we need to update it. So where is our index.css? This is it here. So currently, when you bootstrap the application, this is the default setting that is there, but we need to remove everything that is here and replace it with what Tailwind asks us to use. So let me save this config file and again go to the CSS and save that one too. And once we are done with this line, as you can see, we are done with the setting. The next thing we need to do is to start using Tailwind in our application there. And how do we use this in our application? So what we can do is just to go to any of the file here. So I'm going to delete this app.css. We don't need it again. We're not going to be generating the CSS by ourselves. It's the Tailwind that is going to do that for us. So I'm going to delete that app.css. The only one that we need is just index.css, which is going to bring a lot of things from Tailwind into our project there. And inside this app.js, so since I don't have this file again, I need to delete it there like that. So which other thing do I need to do? I need to delete all these things too. We don't really need them. So I will delete everything that we have inside this place, because this is just the dummy stuff to represent the stuff. And again, I will just have h1, and inside this h1, what I will be having there is just a normal text that welcome to the Foodie app, and we apply some classes on it to see whether Tailwind is working or not. So here we're going to have welcome to Foodie app like this. But I want to apply some CSS, because right now, another thing with Tailwind is that once this thing started working in your project, every style that you used to have on your element are going to get deleted. So Tailwind will remove all the default styling that you used to have on your element. You know, by default, H1 used to be bold and it will be big. And again, the same thing with your H2 and so forth like that. Once you started using Tailwind, all the styling on your element will be removed, because it's not less for you now to start applying whatever you want. By default, Tailwind is going to reset all the elements that you have in your project if it started working. So, and how do we know that it started working? So let's run our project by using npm run dev. And when this thing is done spinning off the server, what do we need to do? We'll go to the browser, we check it out, and if we can see this text without bold, it means Tailwind is working. But if you are still seeing the text as bold, that means Tailwind is not set up properly in your project. So to have this in now, we just need to go to this our local host, that's the port 5173 like this. Press enter, and we should have that text on the screen by one side here like that, with just a normal text. Not even though we're using H1, can you see now? So it's going to be a normal text. It means Tailwind is working in our application like this. Because you can see now, I did not do anything like all those things that we normally do, that we're going to do P0, M0, box sizing, border box, font. We don't need to do all those ones, because Tailwind will do all those setup for us out of the box. And that's why you see that there's no spacing at all at the edge there. And again too, another thing it will do is that it will remove all the default styling that you have on your element there. And right now we've not used any Tailwind stuff, and that's why it is telling us in the terminal here that it cannot find any of its classes, because what it used to do is that whatever classes you use here that is dealing with Tailwind, it will see them and it will convert them to the proper CSS that the browser is going to understand there like that. And what are the classes that you can use? So for example here now on Tailwind has some of these classes to generate colors. To generate colors for your text or to deal with text, it always starts with this text. Then if it is color you want to generate, followed by hyphen and followed by the color that you want. But Tailwind actually come with some predefined colors that you can use. For example here blue, and as you can see here, it comes with different shades. So starting from 50 all the way to 950. So it starts from the light version of the color all the way to the darker version. It's not only blue that they have, so they have yellow too. Just mention the popular one that you know. So purple, it comes with it. It comes with red. It comes with orange. It comes with amber, I think. Yeah, like this. So and you can pick any shade that you want. So this thing behind the scene is going to generate a CSS. And which CSS is going to generate? Can you see here? So this class you are using here, this is what Tailwind is going to generate behind the scene. So it's going to generate this property color and the value is going to be what is here. And if you look at it right now, you see that this thing is showing the color is going to generate there. Like this, the color this thing is going to generate is showing it, or the CSS stuff that this Tailwind is going to generate is showing it for me here. It's not going to work like that for you until you install this extension. So in order for this thing to work like that from your own side, you need to have the Tailwind installed. So the Tailwind extension in VS Code, as you can see here, I have it installed. So you have to install this Tailwind IntelliSense. So without Tailwind IntelliSense, you will not know what Tailwind will generate, like what Tailwind will be generating later on. And it's very important that you know, because when you are starting first, there is no way you know what this thing will be generating for you or what are the stuff you have from Tailwind there. With the help of this Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, it will show you if it is valid Tailwind, it will show you what is going to generate behind the scene, or before you even complete typing itself, it will bring out all the suggestion or what you have available based on the text that you type on the screen. Here now if I type text 3XL or 3 like this, as you can see, it's going to bring out anything that's related to that from the Tailwind, and it will tell you what this thing is going to generate behind the scene. So anytime you text 3XL, it's going to generate the font size of this number here, and again to the line art. And as you can see, it's showing you the pixels when you are using 16 pixels by default, which is what is here if you don't change it. But in order for you to be seeing all these things, you need to install this extension there. And once you install that extension, then you'll be able to work with Tailwind easily compared to you using it without that extension. If you don't use that extension, it's going to be hard to work with Tailwind there. So it will work, but you will not be able to see what is going on in the code. So here now I can use my text purple again around that 600 like this, and as you can see, to bring that suggestion, and I can save it, and again to showing the code of the color. And as you can see on the screen, we have the text, so it's going to apply whatever CSS. So what you are typing here is for Tailwind, but behind the scene, Tailwind is going to convert it's going to generate the CSS for everything that you type here. And what are the CSS you'll be generating behind the scene? These are the CSS. So if you go back to the page and check the code that this thing will be generating, you see that on the page there are some CSS that have been generated for us inside the HTML. So if you go to the element under this head now, if you expand it and you go to the style side and you expand it, can you see it will generate? So all this thing now, Tailwind is generating them. What you are typing is the class, but Tailwind is generating all this thing on the fly. So those things that we used to do, as you can see now, the margin 0, the padding 0 that we normally do, can you see that is doing it for us automatically, and some other settings that we don't need to care about, Tailwind is going to set them up. So all our H1, can you see what is doing? It's inheriting all the font size, the font weight, reset them. So all the A that's reset them, every element, it reset everything. Everything will look the same. A will be the same thing as P. It will be the same thing as the H1 and so forth like that. So these are what the Tailwind is doing behind the scene for us. And whatever the class that you mentioned is going to generate all those 1 and 2 on the fly. These are the default settings it's doing, but the one that you mentioned there too is going to generate them on the fly. And what are the one that we mentioned? So if you expand this in, can you see we have this text 3XL and this text purple. So it's going to generate the classes for all this one for us behind the scene if you expand the stuff like this, which is going to do a lot of things for us. But you don't need to care about what Tailwind is doing. What you need to care about is how you want your application to look like based on the CSS that you want to use. And what are the CSS we're going to be using later on? So I'll be coming here regularly to show you some of these CSS you can use. For example, here now, if you want to do with anything that deal with over or focus on other states, you just go to come to this document here, and it will tell you how you can handle over. Can you see here now? You can see the color is changing. So how do you do something like this? So to do it, it will tell you what you need to type in your code to be able to have that. So this one now is going to use BG Sky Blue, which is what it's using currently. But anytime we now over on it, you want to change the BG. BG is just the background. So this is how to create background. So you start with BG. Now, just like the way I mentioned it now, if you want to deal with text, you start with text. So if you want to do with background now, so it's going to be BG, then followed by whatever you want to do with background. You know, background, you can change the image, you can use image, you can use color, and so forth like that. So if you want to use color now, followed by the color you are looking for. If you don't have your own predefined color set up, you can use the Tailwind, just like the purple we use right now. So here now I can use this BG, then purple, and I can use a lighter version, which is this 300. So the text is going to be 600, while the background is going to be this 300. And if you go back to the page, once you go back to the page now and check the stuff, you see that the background is going to be that stuff and the color is going to be this. But now there is no padding. How do you create padding? It's quite easy to create padding in CSS. To see how to create padding, as you can see, you can come under this spacing here, or you can scroll down, or you can even search from the doc. Anything you are looking for, just type it. For example here, padding. As you can see, it's going to bring out the stuff, and it will take us to the documentation where we can see how to add padding. And these are the stuff you can type to generate padding. So P is what is going to give us padding. So to generate margin is going to be M. As you can see, it's quite easy. It just picks the letter from what you need to type from your CSS there to generate the stuff. So P is for padding. And in front of it here, Tailwind have some predefined setting for your padding. And this thing follows some standard design. It follows standard design. So P0 is just like that. You are typing padding of 0, as you can see here. So if you use P1, it's the same thing as you typing padding of 0.25 here. And once you start using this thing, you get used to it later on. So P2 doesn't mean it's generating 2 pixels though. It's going to give you a particular value. And that's why I say you need this extension so that you can see what it's doing. So P4 is 1 rem. P5 is 1.25 rem. P6 is 1.5 rem. P7. So all these numbers you are seeing in front of this padding, the same number that is giving you for padding, you see the same number is going to give you for margin. And that's the beauty of Tailwind. They have a system. So this 7 here now is always 1.75 rem. Whether you're using it for padding or you're using it for margin. So if I type M now, which is for margin, and if I type the same 7, you see that it's still the same 1.75 you're using. So Tailwind, once you are used to their number now, you see that it will always be the same thing anywhere you are using that number. Even if it is a width too, like that. So here, if I want, I can use W, which is the width. So if I use 7 now, can you see? You see the same value. So it's always the same thing, irrespective of the property you are using it with. It's going to generate the same thing for you. So if you use W is width, as you can see here, this is the property is going to generate for you behind the scene, and the width is going to be this 28 pixels there, like that. And which other thing do we need to set up? I think that's all for this project that we want to work on, because every other thing that we need they are part of the React already. So all the other functionality we're going to be using, they are part of React. We don't need to install anything again. Again too, we don't need our routing because we only have one page. We're not taking the user from one page to another one. So since we don't have multiple pages, then we don't need to install React router DOM. The only time you install it is when you have multiple pages and you need to route the user from one to the other one there. And since we only have everything we want to show is on just one screen and we're not taking them to another page, so we don't need it. But for the styling, we need Tailwind, and we've installed it. We've installed our React, and in the next class now, we are going to start by bootstrapping our application. But before I call it a day, so let me quickly create all the folders that we need. Yeah, so later on, we're going to have the folder for components. So every of the component we're going to be creating will be here. We don't need a page like that. Another thing that we need later on is going to be context. Why do we need context? We might not even use this one if you don't want to, but I want us to deal with the context to see the usefulness of it there. So because some of these components that we want to use, they're not going to be in the same, like they're going to be together, and they need to have access to the same data. For example, here now the application we want to build, this our component here needs to have access to all the item that you pick. But the item you are picking in this folder, as you can see, this component is going to appear too inside this box. So what is going on inside this component here, it will be happening here too. And you don't want to start sending props now, because some of them, they might not even be together. There's no way you can pass the props because they are not coming from the same parent. And since they are not coming from the same parent, there's no way you can pass down the props. One way of doing it is by setting your state inside this app and you start passing it down around, which can be a problematic there like that. If you are passing props down a component, and some of the component you are passing them down to, they don't really need it, but they have to receive it in order for them to pass it down. But instead of you doing that, we can use our context to distribute the data that we need in our application to anywhere in our application. Any component that is under that particular context, we have access to the data that is there. And we're going to be using this context later on like that. Again too, we're going to have a folder for hooks, because we need to create our custom hooks there like that. It's not much that we create separate folder like this, but just to separate each one of them in case you need to go back to them, you know which folder to enter. So the assets, this is again, for the assets, I'm not going to be using this assets folder for now. Whatever we need, they are going to come from this public. And that's the reason why we need to move these images, because the assets we need, as you can see, all the assets that we need, they are here. So I will pick these images, move it under this public here because it's needed. And at the same time too, I need to move this font because the project is using a separate font, and Tailwind is using another font. So we need to talk to Tailwind that it should use this font instead of using the current one that is there, because the font is not red. The font we want to use is this red art. So how do we talk to Tailwind that we want to use this font? So we're going to be doing that in the next class. That's where we're going to start from in the next class. Set up our font. Again, we're going to set up this inside this asset. Let me delete this React logo first because we don't need it. Another thing we don't need here is this bit logo, so delete it too. We don't need it. Then we need to move the data under this our assets. So what is the data? The data is all the foods that we want, or the items. So there, move it there. So this is the data, and from this data, I need to change this thing because it's not coming from assets, it's coming from public under the images here. So we need to remove anywhere we add this slash assets and we replace it with this slash images like this. So remove all these slash assets because this part is not correct. Look at it, the part is our images is inside public, so it's not inside assets. So we need to remove all these assets and leave only images. Why am I leaving only images? I'm not mentioning public. Anything you have under public, just mention the name of that stuff directly. It knows that it's coming from public. Anything you put inside public, how do you have access to it? Just go to your URL and you do slash. So whatever that is inside public, just go to URL, do slash, and mention that stuff like this. It will give you access to everything like that if you need the stuff. And that's what is going on there like that. So if I need any of this image, for example like this one, I can just copy this, but in our code, that's when we'll be doing all this thing. So and once you see that slash whatever stuff, it knows that it's supposed to go to the public and pick it up. Can you see that it's working? So you don't need to mention public. Anything that is inside public, just add it to your URL. Like after this localhost 5173, just type it directly and it will work because it's inside. Whatever that is inside public, that's what is always going to assume that that's where it's coming from. But assuming we have asset now, it will not go to asset because it doesn't know how to come to this asset. The only thing it can give you from the URL is this public. So you can't come to this asset using that URL. It will not work. And that's the reason why I have to remove all these the dot slash asset. So once we just call this in on our page, it knows that it's supposed to come to public. Under the public, it's going to see the folder and it's going to see the file that we want to pick there, and it will display it to the user. But we need to do this thing dynamically there, like by picking all the data here and display it on the screen based on whether we're on desktop or we're on mobile, and a lot of other things that we need to do there like that. But we're not going to be using dollar, we use naira since we're in Nigeria. So like that. So let me save the data. So for now, save the app, close this CSS for now. We don't need it. We need to come back to this Tailwind config, or let me even do it right now because we need to create our fonts here. So how do we set up our font? So inside this our index.css, we need to load this our font. So how do we load the font? So what we can do here is to use this our font face. So this font face is what you can use to load a local font. Look at it, our font is here. So let me delete this static. We don't need the static. So we don't need the static. The only thing we just need is this one, the variable one. And why do we need the variable one? Is because it comes with different this thing inside it. The different font weights is already there. So with this variable now, it includes all the weights from 100 to 900 depending on the font that you are working with. But I think this current one now, it comes with both 100 all the way to 900. But how do we load it? So in order for you to load a local font that you already have, here now you are going to use this rules at font face. So anytime you call this particular family, for example, here anytime I call this red art or red art like this, so red art text. So anytime I call this in, where is the browser going to look for it? Where is the browser going to look for the font? Because if you don't mention where it's coming from, the browser will look for it on your system, the font you've installed. And if you cannot find it, then it will go back to the default one. But here now, we want to talk to the browser that anytime we mention this red art text, this is where it's going to locate the font. And where is it coming from? You know that anything that is coming from public, just mention the name of the folder and followed by whatever you want there. So here now, from our public, once we mention this red art whatever stuff, come to this font which is under public, then there's a file there which is this particular one. And this thing, when do you want it to use it? So font style. So we want this thing to use the font style anytime it is normal, anytime we're not doing italics. But what if you are doing italics there? Because look at it, there are two. There is one for as you can see, there is this italic one, and there is one that is not having italic in its name. So we want to use this one for when we are dealing with italics text. So when anywhere we are having a slant text, this is the one we want it to use. But if you are not having a slant text, this is the one we want to use. How do you talk to it? So here now we've already talked to it that anytime the font style is normal, which means the text is not slant, and the name of the font family is this is what it needs to load. But if the font style is now italic, then we don't want to load this one again. We want to load another one. And which is the other one that we want to load? We want to load the one that have this particular italics are there like that. So TTF, then before the variable we have italics there, so it's going to be this, that's the name, and this is it here. Or you can just come here, right click, rename, copy everything by highlight all and paste it here so that we don't make mistake with the typing. And once this thing is pasted here, as you can see, we are going to have it. But now how do we use it? Because right now we only define how the browser is going to look for the font. We are not using it yet. So in order for us to talk to Tailwind to use this, or in order for us to talk to the browser to use the stuff, what we can just do here is to override the setting that the Tailwind is using on this our element. Because if you go back to the browser, what I showed you before, if you go back to this head, you see where the Tailwind is setting the fonts are there. So if you come under this style, so open it again, and if you scroll down, you see that it's setting this font on the HTML there like that. Can you see the HTML? So can you see the font family is using by default? So it's using this UI sans serif, system UI, and this other one. So we can just come here and tell it that we don't want to use that too. We want to use something else. For example, we can select this Tailwind and just mention select this HTML, mention font family, and we want to use this red art that we mentioned at the top here. So red art text, or you use this sans serif, or we just use the system UIs at the end of it. So system UI 2 like this. So first we are telling it to try this red art if it is available. If it's not available, try this other one. But once you use red art is available, then just use it. So save it and go back to the page, and we should see that is using our font. And how do we know that it's using our font? So we can just click on the text and check whether it is using the stuff. But this is not the best way of working with like modifying the Tailwind stuff. You can actually do these things too from the configuration in our. So we want to be able to use it too in any code, but I'm setting it up generally. But instead of you doing it like this, we can use the layer. Because if you look at this one now, there are different layers that the Tailwind have there. So here we can use at layer because we want to modify something. So which layer are you looking for? The base, because this is where the HTML is being set up. So at this layer base, the HTML setting that is there, we are changing the font family to something else. So save it now. It will still work like the way it is before, but it's always good that you do it like that. And now this thing is we'll be using our font family that we set up if it is seeing it. But if it's not seeing it, then can you see now that it's not using red art in front of. So if you look at what this thing is showing on the screen now, it is now showing red art text, then followed by the system UI and so forth like that. But assuming it's not using it, you see that the browser is going to show something else. For example, if I commented out this thing, and go to the page, as you can see now, the only thing it's showing is this UI sans serif and so forth like that. But we can change it in this way. But if it's something that you are going to be using later on in your code and you need to do some changes, we're going to do it from this Tailwind config. As you can see, it has this theme. Under this theme, this is where you can extend the Tailwind system, like the color. Because our own color, now we need to define our own color later on. We need to define our own color for the project. As you can see that it has this special color that is using. This kind of an orange color or so like this, and the black too. So, and all this thing has been given to us. We go back to the project under the style guide, just like the way we used to do it before. If you open the style guide, you're going to see all the color you want to use. Can you see? So there is red, there is green, and there is this road 50 to 900. So we need to talk to Tailwind to set up all this color for us. And how do we talk to Tailwind to set it up for us so that we can start using it too as a normal Tailwind code? So here now on our page, so inside this app, we should be able to use, I can just come here and say rows. Then from this rows, I will mention 50 and it will display this up. But if you look at it now, Tailwind have its own rows. So the rows is not even related to our own rows. So we need to set up our own by replacing the Tailwind or by extending it. So depending on which one you want. So if you want to replace it, you can replace it by just coming to Tailwind and you set it up here. But if you want to extend what is there before, then you do it under the extend. If you do it under the extend, it will not remove whatever that is there. It will just add it. And if you look at it now, some of the name of our color here is clashing with our Tailwind, because Tailwind actually have red and they have green. All these popular color names, it come with it already. You don't need to create. But our own too, we need to do it. We need to use the stuff. So here now, if I said green, as you can see, Tailwind come with its own set of green from 50 all the way to 950. That's the same way for all the other color. And now we need to set up our own green. So yeah, I'm going to call it app green. So yeah, we need to set up with the colors. So to set up colors, you are going to create this stuff here. And under the colors, you mention whatever color you want to set up. So yeah, we have the app green. So anytime we call app green, what do we want to show? It's going to give us that color that is coming from that place. So anytime we mention this app rows like this, but this one is going to be object. Why is it object? Because the rows, it's having shade from 50 to this 900. So 50, 100, 300, this is what we now use for the key. But everything is going to be on the rows. That's how Tailwind create this in. But for this red and green, you see the two of them is just one color. But for these rows, it's having the multiple color there. So yeah, I'm going to have the app red too. And why am I adding app to it? Is because we want to differentiate our own red from Tailwind. Tailwind already have red, and we don't want to replace it. Because here now, if I just use text red, you see that it will bring out the Tailwind red. But I don't want to be using this same, because you have to use text followed by the color you want. And I don't want this thing to be thinking I'm talking about the Tailwind red. So that's why I'm adding the app. So I should be able to do something like this app red. And once I use this app red, it will show our own red. But why is it not showing it? Is because we did not have anything there yet. So there's no color. So in order for this thing to work, we just need to put all the corresponding data that's supposed to be there. So this is how you can configure Tailwind. This is not red. It should be red. And for the green, and the advantage of this one is that you can use it as if you are using normal Tailwind code. So for this one too, I'm going to copy it like this. Go to that place and paste it like this. So save. And once you go back to that page now, and once Tailwind is done loading, you see that it's going to show our red for us once it's done seeing the stuff. And it's going to be part of suggestion too. And it will give you the color there once the Tailwind is done loading. I think it's still loading. And once it's done loading, it will show the color. Can you see now that it's not showing? Can you see that it's showing them? So this is our own green and this is our own red that we need for the application. And as you can see, look as if it is Tailwind stuff. It's not because we are doing the setting from Tailwind, from the configuration. And since we configure it, you can use this for background by just say app red like this. And as you can see, it will show. But now it's going to be like a background, not as a text. If I want to use it as a text color, I'll just use text here and it will still work. Not that we'll come here and start typing the stuff again and again. We set it up directly from Tailwind. And we can do the same thing for the rows. So for the rows, when it is 50, we want to do something. When it is 100, this is the color we want to use. Where is the other one? So let me move them side by side so that I see what I'm using. So here, as you can see, for the rows that we have 50, 100, we have 300, we have 400, and that's the same way you are going to be calling them. You are going to use app rows followed by dash, then followed by this stuff. But for all this one, it's just one color. So that's why we are using string. But for the one that have multiple color, is still the same name, then it's going to be object, and you specify all the colors that you want there like that. So it's going to have 500, which is going to be this, and it's going to have 900 like this. So we just need to replace all these items so with the corresponding color. So for the 50, this is what is going to be there. So for the 100, this is just the normal setup, and this is just one-time setup. Once we started working on the application, we'll just be using them. So we don't need to bother ourselves with the setup again later on there like that. And that's the stuff you're supposed to do the first time you want to work on the project. So copy this one like this. So paste and copy this one. I'm recording this video, so once I upload it on YouTube, you will have access to it. Save it. I'm going to create a playlist for you too, like that, and can keep going there anytime to check them. All right, now so open it and go back to our Tailwind. Now we have access to app rows too, so we can just come here. Instead of using this app red, we can use the app rows. But you know the rows is not just one. It have multiple rows are there, and once this thing is done loading, can you see it's not being all of them. So when you mention 50, this is what it's going to do. When it is app rows 100, this is what it's going to do, and it's based on the configuration that we set up here. So it's not just the one rows that we have from 50 to this 100 to this 300, 400, 500, 900, and each one of them are separate color, and we've already connected to Tailwind. Now we can use it anywhere in our project. As you can see, you're going to even see the color instantly, not like the way we used to do it before, that you have to start going back to the color to see what it looks like when you set up your variable. But with Tailwind here, as you're using it, you see what that thing is going to generate for you there quickly. Here you quickly know what colors to use at a particular site based on the design that we are going to be working on here. And that's going to be all for today. Like that, what's time? 1 hour already. All right, so let me stop recording, and this thing will be uploaded on YouTube later on. So that will be all for today. Thank you. Stop.